All right, so we have Scully here with Dale Bolito for, I guess this will technically be part four of the Road to the World Championships. We're going to count Chris Borovic's video on Jinzo Antonic's YouTube channel where he went over his world's predictions. So right now we're going to go over the last top contender deck that me and Dale are predicting for the tier list of worlds, and that is Warrior slash Chaos Warrior.
Yeah, like some sort of aggro type of deck.
Right, doesn't even
And
necessarily have to be all warrior or all chaos, but it's I guess aggro I would say is the last piece of that puzzle, but we're both probably thinking, I assume, a chaos version of it.
yeah, for sure.
So right here we're looking at an older version from the start of 2019. This is the format library standard deck of the aggro warrior.
And did this deck place, did it win one of the format libraries? Or is this just a
Um,
format library deck?
this is just a
Do we
format
know that?
library deck. This is not a PlayStation 1 I believe they only ones that won format library previously were Gearfried builds.
Gearfried. So the very beginning of, I guess, 2019, um, the aggro player was Calvin Tahan, and he had a very similar deck to what we see here, where it's a beatdown deck that utilizes Abyss Soldier.
And a giant trap
And
lineup.
yeah, a massive trap lineup with, I think he played one Berserkerilla, and it was really like Calvin played really well in the very beginning of Go format. Like he was winning a lot of money in the luxury gaming tournaments, and yeah, he was always finishing in top three. And he would say he was milking luxury gaming, and he kind of was. Like he was taking a lot of people down, and it's just people weren't prepared for aggro. Like
Yeah, like
the old vert,
even looking at
yeah,
like this side deck here of this like 2019 deck, it's like no kinetic soldiers, no real answers for beatdown monsters,
yeah,
and the format became in early 2019 a very heavily beatdown warrior aggro format.
yeah, and like what we're coming from. So what I'm coming from is I have a huge gap in from when I played Goat format to competitive Goat now, where the aggro deck was beast down with like enraged battle locks and berserkerillas.
Yeah,
There was never really like a
even more,
good aggro deck.
even more than that. Yeah, right. 2005 it was like you said, Berserkerilla and Enraged, and then it turned more into Blade Knights and King Tiger Wangoos and stuff that can stop scapegoats and metamorphosis and just get your
Yeah,
opponent down to the one for one game. So this was early 2019. The deck really fell off after this, though. I think Goat control players figured out a little bit better of a side deck to handle these kind of decks, and the Chaos control deck started coming on the scene a bit more. And we really didn't see too much of it until GFC 6 when Geist showed up. Actually, Dale, you got second place to this tournament here using Goat control. Uh, got
yeah,
Geist showed up with a chaos version of the warrior deck, the aggro warrior deck.
yeah. And this was like the what I'm seeing was a very big first shift where
Of the
like
meta
this deck,
completely.
yeah, like where this deck completely crushed Go Control. It sided really well into, so if we look at his deck, he sides into, when you put in the anti-warrior stuff, puts in like when you take out your Nox, he puts in the Faith, he puts in the Decoy Cheese, and you just have, the way the deck plays is you have so many dead cards game one.
Yeah, so what this deck was able to do is it maxed out on the Blade Knights. Aggro was still a thing as well. That's why you see the Skill Dark Magicians here. And the maxing out of the Blade Knights and the Skill Dark Magicians gave this deck ability to attack pretty much over anything. And then that very heavy trap lineup allowed you to protect anything else and get your one for one trades, and then have plus ones with the Chaos Sorcerers and Blackluster Soldier. So pretty big jump from the other deck we were just looking at.
Yeah, and like Solemn, the Jar of Greeds were pretty crazy back then too. Just always set your hand. Like the way this deck played was like set its hand
Summon Blade
with
Knight.
weak. Yeah, summon Blade Knight, and Don Zalug would almost always connect. once or
which
twice
which in
in one of these games.
which in an aggro format too, being able to set your hand and summon a Blade Knight meant clearing out that one monster your opponent had out probably, and having Solemn Judgment to back it up.
Yeah, and it took a long time for this deck to get solved, and I guess we can jump to his next version,
Yeah, so Geist
which
was
did.
able to win back-to-back events. He won GFC 6, then FLC 11 here, and you see the next version of the deck where he actually maxed out on Ninja Grandmasters, maxed out on Blade Knights, didn't max out on the Chaos Sorcerers. I would say this is a build expecting to see a lot of mirror matches as well.
Yep. Yeah, he cut the second Don Zaluga this time. And again, it was still not really solved. People were still playing Chaos Control and Goat Control
People are still
against
putting
this deck, and
their Chaos Sorcerers in defense mode.
yeah. So yeah, that was a big shift too, right? Chaos Sorcerer in defense mode was like the standard play a lot of people did if you weren't
Oh yeah,
gonna attack with it that turn.
didn't even think
And
about it. Just
Grandmaster would
throw
just
it in
crush
defense.
it. Yeah.
Yep. Even BLS people were putting in defense, which I don't
Yeah.
think was ever the proper play because it always left you open for a BLS double attack, but it was a common
Yeah.
play regardless.
But yeah, should we talk about the reason why this deck fell off?
Yeah, do you have a good answer to me for it?
Yeah.
Because I was
Yeah.
like, this deck. So this here was GFC 6, FLC 11, and then
Hmm.
the deck did not do anything until GFC 8. So there was an FLC and a GFC in between where this deck did not even make top 8.
The big reason was the side deck. So what completely shut this deck down was Messenger of Peace and Royal Decree.
Right, and Kinetic Soldier, but the two cards you said even more so.
Yeah, you didn't even need Kinetic at that time, right? You could just so when I played it, and I was doing my best to try and solve aggro,
Mm-hmm.
and Chris Perovic was actually the one that was telling people or his circle that the way to stop aggro, and he even had it in a side deck, is Decree Messenger,
Right.
and no one really tested it, right? And then as people started to do it,
we saw
you
multiple. I would say probably like 4 decks each in each event after this with triple Decree, triple Messenger that were able to shut this deck out.
Yeah, because if we go to his side deck, so let's jump. So I guess we have to go back to the GFC before. His side deck doesn't really out Decree or like he's not gonna put True Nades in game 2, right?
No, maybe game 3. Truenade's actually a nice card in this. I don't think people copied the side deck card for card at all, though. I don't think
Yeah.
people even understood the giant Trunade.
He actually shifted to side green Kappa to try and combat it.
Yep. So we see here.
Yeah, he had a green
Yeah,
Kappa
you're right.
there.
He actually. So the previous side deck probably would have worked better.
Yeah.
Because green Kappa's
yeah,
not going to deal with set cards or not face up cards. It won't deal with.
No, exactly. And it was that alone. So when I first tested myself that theory of Messenger Decree, you literally sit Messenger Decree till you have game.
Mm-hmm.
And there, like, this deck didn't play Scapegoats. This deck didn't have anything to stop it. You basically sat on Heavy Storm.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest critiques of this deck was it doesn't play any Super Priest either. This deck was very weak to Scapegoat, and really even Thousand Eyes Restrict. You could put if you had a Suki Lock. Look at this deck look at this build here. There's Book of Moon to answer the Suki Lock, or you'd have to play a Solemn Judgment or your Ring of Destruction. Not a lot of cards to answer it. But the other thing was, even before we saw all those cards come into the top 4 or top 8 of the side deck, the Messenger and the Royal Decree, just from people playtesting online, by the time those events even happened, the Chaos Warrior deck for GFC 7, or for GFC 9, and for FLC 15, I guess, or Beyond 11, the Warrior deck dropped off drastically. There was only like 6 players actually even entering out of like these 70-player tournaments with the Warrior deck after it had just won back-to-back events. So people did catch on that this deck had a big weakness.
Yeah, and I think it was just it didn't.
Yeah,
abandoned it and went to, you know what? Decree Messenger is kind of like that auto win against this deck. Even one of them is
Mhm.
enough to stall you to get to the next one.
Yeah, and I think that's where we started to see Chaos Turbo come in more and get on the
Yeah,
scene with Swisky's win. But the next time we saw this deck after that was a very different variant of it with the Mensch's win that sided into Gravekeepers here from GFC 8.
yeah, and I really liked his version because it was able to,
It
like,
filled in
the
a lot of those
tomatoes
holes,
and the
right?
Midoriya. Yeah,
Yeah, the
the
tomatoes,
only
the Nidoria, the creature swap, the Azure Priest, like all those holes that we were talking about in the other build. Dust Tornadoes in the main deck instead of Jar Greeds.
yeah, the only thing that gets a little bit messy is when you side. Like, he sided the Mobius and the one Zing Zang Zoo, right? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
He sided that for maybe Decree, where if he went into his anti Chaos Warrior side deck in the Gravekeepers, if that Necro value's up, but the Messenger's up, he's shut out of that game too.
Yeah, because he also was probably likely siding out the Dust Tornadoes here as well, because
Yeah,
it's an easy side out of all the traps equals the rest of these cards. But he did have Breaker, Heavy Storm, Mystical Space Typhoon, Mobius,
yeah,
so he did have answers as well.
yeah, and
Um,
I think he ended up beating Turbo deck, right? Chaos Turbo.
yep, he
Yeah,
beat
IMZ1. Yeah.
IMZ1's Chaos Turbo, which is the deck was pretty built to play against. So very different version, a crazy jump from where we were with this Warrior deck to where we end up here on this one, which we also are down to one Chaos Sorcerer, but definitely still a Chaos Warrior deck with the reinforcements and the Chaos Sorcerer.
Yeah, and it's nice seeing the evolution of the stuff and the Mensch coming back to make it work.
Mm-hmm. So then, two more FLCs and two more GFCs go by until SDL Killa ends up with first place here with this definitely a whole nother take on the Warrior Chaos deck.
This was the very last
The la-
FLC?
the last GFC.
Last GFC, okay.
Yep, GFC 10.
Is this when he beats Panda Burn
Yep.
and thing? Yeah, Panda Burn.
So this was a heavy Chaos Turbo event and a heavy Chaos Control event. So the triple Kaiku was able to get the job done here with that. And then the Trap Dust Shoot, always a great answer for any decks playing Thunder Dragon.
Yeah.
And I think the ratios were great on it. And this is a deck I could see just literally just this deck being good at the World Championships.
Yeah, it would still be solid. I feel like maybe you might want to make space for another sorcerer, but I could see where you could just completely lock them out with just like a Solemn, Dust Shoot, and a Kaiku on board.
The cool thing about a build like this, it's able to play a card like Premature Burial because of reinforcements and exiled in the deck. So
Yeah.
you're able to make Premature be a live card within the first two turns, whereas the meta's kind of really shifted away from the revival cards.
Yeah.
And that gives you kind of your pseudo second chaos or third chaos monster as well.
Yeah, like if your chaos isn't getting banished, right? But it's just it was a metagame call and it was a solid deck. Um, even the Samurai #4 is one of those cards that I
Pressure on
feel
the
like if I
face
was
down monsters, pressure on the
yeah,
chaos monsters.
given a little bit more time, like that's a card that I could see slowly make its way into the metagame, mainstream metagame.
Yeah.
It's like knocked on the door a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
I
We've seen
think
it around before for sure, but it's
yeah,
never like made that solid spot like you're saying.
which it's there. It's I mean,
If it wasn't
if
off
it was a
attribute, yeah.
exactly, if it was a dark or a light, it would 100% warrant more testing.
Mm-hmm. So where do you see this deck? How do you see this deck doing at the World Championships?
I just, in my opinion, not that many people will play it.
Really, even
I
though it
don't know
just
why.
won the last GFC, you think it's gonna get
Yeah,
ignored?
yeah.
Uh,
Um, I do like it though. Like Kaiku is the monster for this event, right? If we're gonna
So that's
put it
kind of
on any of them.
that's also one of the issues as well, though, is Kaiku being the monster makes Tsukiyomi a much better card, and then this deck now die the Blade Knights, the Grandmaster, the Kaikus, all the Breaker, all now die to Tsukiyomi that we know is going to see more play for the World Championships to counter Kaikus.
Yeah. And like this deck deals really well with Scapegoat and the Double Azure Priest. Let's see what it outs
I
for.
think that
Gravekeeper Spies are still a little bit of an issue.
still have one Ninja Grandmaster for that, but that is not a ton of cards. Really, only here there is one. So we have Grandmaster, Exile to deal with it, and number 4. So a big shift, if you look at these deck lists here, is the actual lack of Gravekeeper Spy in the top 8. We have one here, 2.
There was one of them had them sided. Yeah, this if it's not mained, it's sided.
So we have 3 counting side decks for top 8. So Gravekeeper Spy definitely has uh, seen a lot less play, and I know in the last FLC 15 there was no Gravekeeper Spy in the top 8.
Part
Not,
of this
not
is
in the main deck at least.
yeah, and this deck being so successful is Solemn is very, very, very strong against Chaos Turbo.
It's actually a great meta call here to
Yeah,
see that your opponent's not playing more spies, and then
yeah,
Blade Knight becoming the better card again. We didn't talk
yeah.
about when we talked about counters to this deck. We didn't bring up Gravekeeper Spy, and that is a huge one for a main deck card to slow this deck down.
Yeah, and I'm curious to what he brings the exterminations in against.
So what I saw him do the most when he played with them was actually not even use them on their own that much. He was discarding them with the Chirons. I saw
So
I saw him once hit a Sakuretsu armor with it, and mostly he was bringing into even to answer his opponent's decree was pop discarding the noblemans with the Chirons, which I thought was actually pretty interesting.
I wonder what other matchups that covers. That covers maybe,
Mirror,
but you have to put in cards like, yeah, yeah. Like if you hit a Solemn, takes you out of it, but you don't have to deal with your opponents.
yeah, I mean pretty much. I think everyone that's critiqued this has said this is probably the weakest card here. I see the point of wanting to bring in more spells with to answer decrees or bring in your decrees with the Chirons. I think is actually really good, and it does
Yep.
give like it makes it into MST kind of more with having Chirons in your deck, but I'm not the biggest fan of that card either.
Yeah, it's a deck that is definitely going to take some people out, but it'll be the least represented deck in top 8 with maybe one or two spots.
So I think I'm gonna disagree with you for the first time of going through this. I think this deck has potential to win the entire event if it is if it makes the right metagame choices, because there's lots of options when you build this deck of which monsters and which spells, and even though they're all similar, like strategy of going for the 1-for-1 trades and having your chaos monsters, I think the right build of this can answer, mainly because of 3 Kaikus being able to be played and protected. I think the right build of a Chaos Warrior deck could win the World Championships.
Yeah, that's really like it's if you make the right metagame call, but that's if you decide to stick with this and not see the power in the other two decks, that we have ahead of it, right?
Right.
Like how many people are citing Decree Messenger right now?
Well, for this event, there was
Decree's there. Decree's there.
0 Messenger of Peace.
Yeah, so it's the same thing where you can kind of just sit with Decree Messenger until you have game, right? It's reverting back to the very
Right.
first.
If people are worried enough about this deck to bring in Messenger into the side.
Yeah, yeah, and but if like you don't even need 3, right? You could have just a combination of the 4, like 2 Decree, 2 Messenger, and just
However,
having that could shut.
that's why I like this Chiron.
Yeah, that's something I guess that wasn't there in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Too bad it's not a warrior.
What is it? A Beast Warrior, right?
Yeah. It also loses to Tsukiyomi, 1000 defense.
It has priority though, right? Priority to
It
pitch
does.
to discard,
It does have priority.
pitch to destroy.
Yep.
Yeah, there's like if there's a decree up, there's no way to stop it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you bring a very good point there, and I mean it not being a warrior is good because kinetic
Yeah,
can't get more damage over it.
that's true. Man, Messenger Decree Tsukiyomi does shoot down this deck though, huh?
Yeah,
The Tsukiyomi can attack over all of your monsters that you throw on the board while you can't play any traps or attack with yours.
yeah, and think about it. The decks that can play Decree Messenger can play Tsukiyomi as well, right? So
Right, for sure. Alright, so I think this deck is a top contender. I think you think a little bit lower than I do, but still put it up there. Anything else you want to say about it?
I think the one version that we haven't looked at are like return variants,
Yeah, so
return variants of aggro.
I guess kind of. I think the closest one when I was looking at them was actually the one that I used
You played it, yeah.
for.
Like you just grab the bounties deck for the event. You said you haven't been testing, and you
Right.
did pretty well with it.
So I think it's GFC 8, I believe. Oh no, that was Euros. That's what it is. Okay. Yeah, so I had not been playing at all, and this is kind of a similar version. Um, I guess mine's not too warrior. It's not as warrior inclined, but I have seen
Yeah,
people mess around with decks that are running like Thunder Dragon and reinforcements and this stuff, and yeah, that is an option as well for it, where you're just going hard with the warriors and you can return everything back as well. Um,
yeah.
kind of
Like
different, still heavy trap lineup. Um, mine's probably not the best example of what people are playing now, but it is a deck that is out there of Thunder Dragon with reinforcements, and I've seen people use it with like Night Assailant in the deck and Green Kappa, so they have like good graceful charity targets to discard and pitch away, and so you go like first turn reinforcements, Green Kappa, graceful charity, cool stuff
oh
like
yeah,
that. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So yeah, that's one
But
more
this
deck to be on the radar for sure.
yeah, like a chaos warrior or a chaos beatdown at return type of deck is what I see
The deck evolving too.
being the better version of aggro. I
Um,
mean, we're just speculating, but like in from what I feel, it's just
the last thing
the deck for me.
the last thing I'll say about it is the Menches version of this also could just completely dominate an event as well. If
I was thinking that too.
if
Like
you get
Mench's version
if you
is
get
very strong.
this main deck is covers a lot of ground right here. Skill drain in the
Yeah,
main, Solemn covers everything. Um, Tomatoes are great to be able to set. Sewer Priest covers goats, creature swap in there, and siding into the Gravekeeper stuff can just blow out the game too. So I wouldn't sleep on this deck either. I would at least have it in your mind when you see
yeah.
Chaos Warrior. They might be siding into Gravekeepers.
The only fear is when you play the alternate Windex with a deck like this, where
Mm-hmm.
your side deck doesn't really have
Right.
anything for burn.
That's why I started with if it gets the right matchups, then this deck can
Yeah,
get all the way to the finals. But it could also
yeah,
lose round one or two.
yeah. If he runs into like delinquent round one and
MMF round
S,
three or something.
yeah, yeah, like you could get completely taken out just because you like. There's very little combination of cards that you can draw
Yeah, you don't want to play
to
against
start, right?
Burn. You don't want to play against Jaw. You don't want to play against Library with these decks. Necro Valley can help you out a little bit, and you're kind of just hoping from there. Although having
Yeah.
Solemn's mained and Dust Tornadoes does also cover a ton too.
Yep, yep.
All right, so
But yeah,
I think we will do one more video probably next week. We will cover all of the maybe like 3 or 4 other decks that we not as
yeah,
in depth that we think have a chance at the World Championships.
yeah. I feel like the next video might be a little bit longer, only because
Different decks
we'll
and
go over. Yeah, we'll go over like
who
maybe
knows what rabbit
four.
hole will go down.
Yeah, we'll go over like four or five decks, and yeah, World Championships is around the corner.
Yeah, about less than 2 weeks away. So we will see you guys
Yeah,
next week and catch you later.
awesome. Bye.